and girls, welcome back to KidsTV for Bounce and Jump. My name is Sonia and we have our old friend Ringo with us. He's back. Say hello to the boys and girls. Can you see him, boys and girls? Oh, what's that? Oh, yes. He wants to tell you that this week we're thinking about love again. We're thinking about love all the way through February. And today we're thinking about love is patient. Are you patient, Ringo? No, Ringo isn't very patient. We're going to learn a little bit more about that now. In the Bible, Paul writes a letter to a church in a place called Corinth, and in it he talks about love. He says love is patient. What does it mean to be patient? Well, you may know that sometimes your mummies and daddies have to be really patient. Maybe they're waiting for you to finish your food or to tidy up. Maybe you have to be patient with your brothers and sisters if you have any, when they don't want to play with you or when they're using a toy that you want to play with and you have to wait until they're finished. That's being patient. We have to be patient with each other if we want to be more loving. God is love and we want to be more like him, don't we? In the Bible, there's lots of people who had to be really patient, not just for a few seconds to wait for their favourite toy, but for a long, long time. One of those people is David, and we're going to hear a little bit about him today. Because God spoke to David through Samuel and told him that he was going to be king one day. He told him that when he was a little boy, but he didn't become king when he was a little boy. It was much, much later. Let's hear about it now. Jesse and his 8 sons live in Bethlehem. God has sent Samuel to visit them. He has an important job to do. Samuel has to choose one of the sons to be the next king. Jesse brings 7 of his sons to meet Samuel. Each time God says to Samuel, "No, he won't be the new king." What will Samuel do now? Jesse tells Samuel that he has one more son called David. He's the youngest of them all, and he's a shepherd boy, which means he's out on the hills looking after the sheep. David comes to meet Samuel. God says, yes, this is the right son. One day he will be the king. So Samuel pours special oil onto David's head to show that David is special to God. Why don't you touch your head, boys and girls? David knows God loves him and has chosen him for a very important job. Now you may know some more things about David. Do you remember he fought off a massive big giant? Well, when he grew up, he went to live in the palace with King Saul, and he's made a best friend there called Jonathan. But one day David found out he was in trouble because the king Saul wanted to hurt him. He was angry at David because he was a better soldier than him. Jonathan tells David he must hide from Saul. Jonathan helps David to hide in a field nearby, but Saul gets very angry when he finds out that David is missing. Jonathan runs to tell David how angry the king is. David knows he must leave and go somewhere, and then he'll be safe. They're really sad, David and Jonathan, because they're not going to be together anymore. They hug and they cry, but they make a special promise to be friends forever. And David thanks God for keeping him safe. Well, the cave is dark and cold where David is hiding from Saul. But King Saul and his soldiers are looking for him, and they stand outside the cave. King Saul walks into the cave. The cave is dark and cold. He's so dark that he can't see David, but David can see King Saul. David creeps up behind him and cuts a piece off from his coat. David thinks about hurting King Saul, but he knows that God would not want that. King Saul walks out of the cold, dark cave. David runs after him. "King Saul, look, it's me, David." Slowly, King Saul turns around. He's still very angry with David. As he turns, he sees the piece of coat that David is holding. Now King Saul knows that David has actually been very kind to him because he didn't hurt him. And he knows that David acted as God wanted him to. So David became the king, just as God said he would. Isn't that amazing? All those years later, from being a little boy and that promise that one day he would be king. He was patient all those years, and then years later, God's promise came true. He became the king. Boys and girls, I wonder if you want to be a little bit more like God. I know I do. I know that I want to be more like Jesus every day of my life. So I want to learn to be more patient, because God is love and love is patient.